My bad. I was just like,
No one was talking, so I'm like, I guess I better fill in the gap.
Okay, our presentation is ageism, and my name is Elisa Burleson.
I'm Jeremy Koger.
I'm Corey Liu.
and my name is Michael Gore, and we are all freshmen at Iowa State.
So what is ageism? Ageism is the prejudice and discrimination towards one age. You can be denied opportunities due to being younger or older than the person who's giving the opportunity. In 1967, there was an Age Discrimination Employment Act, which stopped the discrimination against those 40 and older when looking for a job. The perpetrator versus the victim. The perpetrator can be anybody capable of discriminating, and then the victim is those being discriminated against due to their age. So they could be older or they could be younger as well. One example we have of this is the military age versus the drinking, smoking and age. You can be much younger to go into the military, but you have to be older to start drinking or smoking. Another example we have is employer not hiring an older person who still has all the credentials.
So some examples of ageism would be the minimum age to work, the age to become emancipated is 14, ageism against people renting a house because you have to be 18 years old to be in a legally binding contract, minors cannot travel abroad without a parent's consent, the drinking age, the voting age, the smoking age, and the fact that employers want younger people in the workplace, but they still expect these younger people to be experienced or to have the same experience as older people have.
So the most evident example today would be the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many state governments and eventually the federal government employed different lockdown policies to try and contain the pandemic. But throughout last summer, we saw many younger people generally didn't really follow the guidelines too well. They continued to go outside and work or go and hang out with friends. And we saw that older people were more at risk at getting the virus. So throughout the pandemic, they were the ones mainly staying inside. This development following the lockdown could be considered a modern form of ageism where elders stayed inside for their own safety. However, this relatively safe form of ageism was, for the most part, disregarded since young people who were going outside despite all these lockdown policies put older people for risk of infection anyway. So historically, back in 2004, there was a lawsuit concerning Jack Gross against the FBL Financial Group. He was 55 years old and he was removed from his position as a claims administrative director for FBL. And his lawsuit made it to the Supreme Court, in which he won. And as a result, the Protecting Older Workers Against Discrimination Act was passed in Congress, which was a federal piece of legislation that would lower the burden for winning age discrimination cases.
So these are some examples of older versus younger ageism. We know that ageism is wrong in most scenarios, but we also found out that it can be acceptable in some scenarios. Like obviously the driving age being 16 is an example of ageism, but that's an example that we like because it keeps young and unexperienced drivers off the road. And we also found out that younger voices are oftentimes drowned out in the ageism battle just because they don't have the resources that older people have. And so we kind of found out that adults kind of disregard the ageism that their kids experience just because they are kids and don't really like notice that they're experiencing ageism or don't really do anything to change that. And we kind of also came to the conclusion that it's harder for minors to make a stand when it comes to ageism because they have less resources. And then we also have this statistic that shows that 1 in 5 workers in the US who's 55 or older is experiencing some kind of ageism.
Here are some of the impacts that ageism has on us. So negative attitudes on the effects of aging in older groups. As you get older, older people are seen as less valuable or carrying less efficiency or productivity as younger generations. So it's just seen that older people don't really have the same value that younger ones do. There's also negative views on providing long-term care for older people. So some of these caretakers for geriatrics don't really see them as having the worth either or being worth the time. There's also negative outcomes in mental health. A study by the WHO found that as you get older, your mental health decline is increased as well as your view on life. There's also sustained inequality and opportunity between age groups. So say an older person not getting the same job as a younger person would, even though they have the same qualifications or the same resume, and even the loss of available resources due to age. So as one gets older, they're seen, as less beneficial to society, so they shouldn't be able to receive the same resources, even though, they may be worth it. Taking a stand against ageism. Is it impossible to end all ageism in the United States? We decided as a group that that wouldn't be possible just because some ageism is required in order to protect people, such as the age to work or the age for smoking and drinking, voting. But it is important still to speak out against ageism when you see it. So it's important to report it and educate yourselves on the importance of it.
Okay, and those are some of the sources we used.